The Mariners enter tonight needing just one win to go to the first World Series in franchise history. And after tonight, they're still looking for that win. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, boat people. It is Sunday, October 19th, 2025. This is Colby Patton with the Locked On Mariners podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Well, it could have been the best night in Mariners franchise history. Unfortunately, tonight felt all too familiar as the Mariners more or less choked away a prime opportunity to secure the biggest win in franchise history. And they didn't look that good doing it. Rough night for everybody, really. This was a top-down failure of the pitching, the defense, the base running, the offense. They just got their doors blown off. It was one of the more passive beatdowns you'll see. Yeah, and the 3 Blue Jay wins, they have really dominated you. Whereas you've kind of had to scrape by for 2 of your 3 wins in this series. So they all count the same. Each team has won 3 games, and whoever wins tomorrow is going to the World Series. And that's really the only thing that matters. But tonight was ugly. There's no reason to, put around and just kind of try and not step on anybody's toes. These professional athletes, you can just call it like you see it, and they'll be fine. Logan Gilbert was dreadful tonight. Absolutely dreadful. And what we saw tonight from Logan Gilbert was what we have seen for most of the year, with the caveat included that the Toronto Blue Jays are a team that is seemingly specifically built to give this version of Logan Gilbert the most trouble. Logan has been a strikeout machine this year, but he has not been able to put guys away quickly. He has not been able to go deep into ball games for a majority of this year. And he is a guy who will make some mistakes, but the stuff has been so good this year, he can get away with them. You can't do that to this lineup. You can't make mistakes. You can't have 9 pitch at bats to every single hitter and expect to get away with it. It's not going to happen. So you have a version of Logan Gilbert, which in my opinion is significantly worse than the version we saw last year. Take the numbers, throw them out, watch the games. Logan Gilbert is not as good this year as he was last year. He's striking more guys out, but who cares? Like, what's the point? And this Blue Jays team does not strike out. We've talked about this. This is a brutal matchup for Logan Gilbert. It wasn't a great matchup for him when he was at his best. And this version of Logan is particularly susceptible to be knocked around by these Blue Jays. And he just didn't have it tonight. The stuff was okay. I don't really have a problem with the stuff. Command and control wasn't. There were a couple pitches that didn't go his way. In fact, let me word this carefully. The home plate umpire tonight, the strike zone tonight was bad, heavily skewed against the Mariners, but that's not why they lost. They did not lose this game because the strike zone was bad. It was bad, and they also lost the game. That's kind of the difference in this one. But Logan just didn't have it. When he did throw strikes, most of them were in the middle of the plate. When he was on the corners, Toronto was able to foul those pitches off. It's just long, grinding at bats, and then you make a mistake, and boom, it would get hit hard. 4 innings, 5 runs, 4 earned. Again, defense didn't help him out. No question about it. Strike zone didn't help him out. No question about it. But he was bad. This is the most important start of Logan Gilbert's career, and he sucked. He was bad. He crumbled in Toronto, and it kind of, kicked off what was ultimately a disastrous game for the Mariners across the board, as we mentioned earlier. But Logan wasn't good tonight. The bullpen did come in, and they were able to give Seattle a chance to get back into this one. Bizzardo got used, Brash got used. So the Mariners were able to keep it somewhat close. They scored a couple runs late in this game, in the middle of the game, and had plenty of opportunities offensively to get back into this one. But unfortunately, the 4-0 hole, I should say, that Logan dug was just too much to overcome. The offense never really found its footing, and by the time they started to put some good at-bats together, it was just far too late. So the Mariners really never had a shot in this one. It is the unfortunate reality of what we watched, but it is the reality of what we watched. I mean, Logan went 4 innings. He gave up 7 hits. Also walked a guy, only 3 strikeouts, a couple home runs. He gave up, let's see here, 2, 4, 7 hard hit balls. You had to use Bizzardo in this one for 2 innings. Thankfully, he only threw 15 pitches, should be fine for tomorrow. Brash gave up a run as well, unfortunately, on a wild pitch. Yeah, it wasn't a good night for Brash. Couple walks, also had a hit. He threw 21 pitches. Again, he'll be available tomorrow. Everybody will be, with the exception of Logan Gilbert, I'm sure. And Carlos Vargas came in and he gave up a couple hits, but he was able to throw up a scoreless bottom of the 8th. So, didn't have to use Munoz tonight, didn't use Spire, but you did use Bizzardo. He should be fine, only 15 pitches. Matt Brash continues to be kind of a hit or miss guy. He's either going to be great or he's going to be lousy. Tonight was mostly lousy, if we're being honest, just not great command and control. So, unfortunately for the Mariners, the pitching just was not good enough, but it starts with the starter. Logan Gilbert wasn't good enough. You needed him to be better. He was not. Period. So, it's a bit of a bummer. Obviously, biggest game of the franchise, and kind of the guy who is the leader of your pitching staff just kind of went out there and laid an egg. Again, didn't get much help whatsoever. We saw Eugenio Suarez make a pretty bad error. We saw bad routes in the outfield. We saw what is called a throwing error on Cal Raleigh, although it's really more of another error on Gino for not blocking a baseball instead of trying to pick it like they had any shot to get the runner out. So, a couple of errors, again, some really bad base running in this one as well, just not enough offense to overcome. But Logan wasn't good. That's the reality of the situation here. And unfortunately, on the other end, Trey Savage was pretty good, although you had plenty of opportunities to get back in this game. You had bases loaded with 1 out in back-to-back innings, and you got a grand total of 0 runs out of that. The Blue Jays only had to use Varland and Hoffman. They only had to use 2 guys out of their bullpen. Granted, they're 2 best guys, and they did throw 22 and 35 pitches in this one. So we'll see if that comes into play tomorrow. They'll pitch if they have to. It's not like they won't be unavailable, but maybe they just won't be quite as effective. But yeah, this game sadly was pretty much over at 4-4 or at 4-0 in the 4th inning. The Mariners, again, they scored 2 in the 6th to make it somewhat interesting. At that point, it was 5-2. And again, they had been generating traffic, so things look like you might be a big hit away from getting right back in this thing. But the offense was just dreadful tonight. 13 strikeouts in this one, and just a lot of non-competitive at-bats from your best players. Julio went 0 for 3 with a walk. Cal went 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. Jorge went 0 for 4 with a strikeout. Josh Naylor and Randy Arozarena actually had, pretty good games in this one. Naylor went 2 for 4 with a solo homer. Randy went 2 for 4, also 2 strikeouts, but whatever, you take what you can get. Gino did have a hit and a walk in this one, so that's nice to see, but just really not a ton to show for it. Leo Rivas almost went yard, which would have been amazing, but hits off that high wall in right field off the bullpen, and JP Crawford with one of the dumber base running decisions. We'll see. It was a sight to behold. We'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, a reminder, this episode of Locked On Mariners podcast is brought to you by Gametime and FanDuel.
There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. The energy, the crowd, the chance to see your team in person. But actually getting tickets, that's the tough part. Queues, login screens, surprise fees. Ugh. It takes all the fun out of it. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, All fees are included, so the price you see is the price you get. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet.
You're listening to Locked On Mariners. Quick little housekeeping note here, guys. The plan right now is for Ty and I to record a Game 7 preview tomorrow, which should be dropping about the same time as our normal episodes. So be on the lookout for that. Ty went to the game tonight. He is fighting traffic and foot traffic to get back to his house. He's just not going to make it in time. So here I am doing a solo show. But anyways, the plan is to do a Game 7 preview tomorrow and then a post-game show. I would assume hopefully a happy one, although based on tonight's outcome, it's hard to feel that optimistic, but who knows? It's a Game 7. Anything can happen. The Mariners have already announced that George Kirby will get the ball. The Blue Jays are going to counter with Shane Bieber, who starts in these games. Doesn't matter a ton because we're probably going to see everybody on both sides. I imagine the only two pitchers who are not available tomorrow for either team are going to be Trey Savage and Logan Gilbert. Everybody else should be ready to go. That means Wu, that means Miller, that means Castillo. And for the Blue Jays, that means Scherzer if they need it. That means Kevin Gossman if they need him. So we'll see. We shall see how this thing plays out. We will talk about that more on tomorrow's episode. But unfortunately, the Mariners could not handle their business tonight. So now we all get to sweat through a Game 7. We mentioned some of the sloppy play from the Mariners in this one. The base running was kind of an underrated part of that. Leo Rivas had a great hit. It was high, should have been at least a double off the wall in right field. Ends up being a single because J.P. Crawford apparently thinks that Nathan Lucas could jump 15 feet in the air. And so he kind of starts to run back to first base only to have the ball hit, 5-6 feet above Lucas's head, which obviously it was going to do. So he had to quickly, reverse course and head back to second base. Not a good look. Should have had at least runners on second and third. And we're being honest, JP should have read that ball better. He might have been able to score on that one. So that is unfortunate. I can't remember if it was Lucas or Barger was in the game at right field at that point. They both played right field tonight. I think it was Barger at that point. So probably would have been hard to score on Barger because he's got the cannon, but still really bad base running. This is to go along with just kind of a whiff from Gino, really a couple of them defensively. In this one, the Mariners, they issued 3 walks. They gave up a couple home runs, and the offense just did not get it done. 13 strikeouts in this one. They do have 4 walks. They did manage 7 hits. Unfortunately, just 1 home run. And we know what the formula is for the Seattle Mariners. They have to hit home runs. That's how they're going to score their runs. If they don't hit home runs, they're in trouble. The strikeouts are fine so long as you're doing damage when you do make contact. And today, the Mariners had an expected batting average of 175. They only had 5 hard hit balls in the entire game, 27.8%. They had 1 extra base hit. It was the Josh Naylor solo homer. And that was it. The Mariners just got kind of punked. They got jumped. And it just showed. So this was a rather unfortunate effort from the Mariners. It is tough sometimes. I should rephrase. It is tough most of the time to be a Mariners fan. You just thought maybe tonight would be one of the few exceptions that we've had in our franchise's history, and it just wasn't meant to be. Perhaps tomorrow will be. But now I don't think it is. I don't feel great about it, I should say. But it's a game 7. Literally anything can happen in a game 7. Throw out the stats, throw out the series, previews and all that, and it's just going to come down to who plays better for 9 innings tomorrow. Well, at least 9 innings tomorrow. Knowing the Mariners, it could be a 15-inning game again. But yeah, it is. I guess if you're looking for reasons for optimism for tomorrow, A, it's a game 7. Anything can happen. We know this. B, it is George Kirby on the mound. Playoff George has been mostly really good. So it's not unreasonable to expect him to be better than he was in his last outing. Side note on the negative side of that, his last outing was against the Blue Jays, and he looked terrible. So we'll see. But you do have playoff George on the mound tomorrow. It is a game 7. Anything can happen. Your bullpen is in good shape, even though it had to get used, even though they had to cover 4 innings tonight. Your bullpen's still in good shape. You'll have everybody but Gilbert available tomorrow. And this team is one of the most resilient teams we've ever seen in Seattle. They get back up. You knock them down, they get back up. At some point, they're not going to. Maybe that's tomorrow. But this team continues to defy expectations. They lose game 1 to Detroit. Now they have to beat Skubal, and they find a way to do it. They win game 3. This is great. Take home, go out and win game 4. They get blown out game 4 in Detroit. And now they have to travel across the country, back home again. And what do they have to do? They have to beat Skubal again. They lost the 2 easiest games in the entire series. And here they are. They found a way to beat Skubal again. Took 15 innings. And that is kind of the strategy for tomorrow as well. Not to play 15, but to get Bieber out of the game as soon as you can. You can attack this bullpen. You can get to this bullpen. Again, Hoffman was really good tonight. Varland, not terrible. He did give up a run, but it was kind of a fluky double. But Varland's pitched a ton. He's kind of their Bizarro. He's pitching basically every game of this postseason. So you might have a shot to get to a tired Varland who threw 22 pitches today and has thrown 9 of the 10 games or whatever the Blue Jays have played. And Hoffman threw 2 innings tonight, 35 pitches. That could come into play as well. So you have to get to Bieber. You have to get him out of this game. He's pitched very well against you in the past. So you have to be a little bit patient, but you have to be willing to attack. You have to be willing to go after the fastball when you get it, if you get it, and you have to put it in play. Again, 14 strikeouts tonight. If they do that tomorrow, they still could win, but they better hit more than 1 solo homer. They better be a 3-run homer in there and maybe a solo shot and something like that. So yeah, this team is exhausting. They are tough to figure out, and I don't ever want to pick them because they are the streakiest team in baseball, but you don't want to pick against them either because they're the streakiest team in baseball. So game 7, man, game 7. The first time in franchise history the Mariners are playing into game 7. It was never going to be easy, was it? It was never going to be easy. Yeah. So we'll see how tomorrow goes. Again, Ty will be back tomorrow. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it after the game, hopefully celebrating the Mariners' first trip to the Fall Classic ever. That'd be something. Anyways, that's going to do it for tonight's show. Thank you so much for listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast, and we will be back tomorrow.